Hello, everybody. This is Pete from PA Labs. And as promised, this is a video on interfaces and structures and interfaces. Okay. I have pored over the help system till I'm blue in the face and finally just started to build it and comment it up the way I think it makes more sense. So what I'm going to do is walk you through this. And you're probably asking, well, why do I care about interfaces? And you really don't have to. This is for people who are coming out of the .NET world and want to see things the same way that you do in other languages. Uh, Instead of this, I have always used modules. Modules are and interfaces are uh, in my world and I believe they're interchangeable. One is more a pure basic way of doing it. This is more mainstream. So there's a lot of differences, but we'll run through this. And for those of you who are coming out of .NET or Pascal or any of the other languages, um, I'm going to be using a lot of terms that are not necessarily pure basic, and I'm going to reference them backwards to pure basic. So um, this is a object that would basically replace a module for updating an object, a database table, say, called foo. Okay, we could change foo out for any table, you know, person table, widget table. You could call it anything you like. So, uh, paramount and up front at the top, we have to build a structure. Okay, the structure identifies the database table elements, the actual detail elements, and this is tantamount to the private variables of a normal object in another language. Okay. Now we have an additional dot or asterisk DSVT, and basically they're calling that a data set virtual table. And what that really translates to being is a cache of memory of the structure foo that we've created. Okay. That is what this is, a pointer to the memory where foo, each instance of foo is created. Okay. And this whole thing holds one. Okay. Now, you're probably going, okay, Pete, I don't understand. And let's come down here to see first how you create a field that is of type interface foo. All right. And we have it equal to, this is a constructor, and I'll go show you this in a second. And the constructor takes one element, and that would be a name. So you can start this variable off so where my field now has the actual structure field has three fields. First, it has its memory location for where it lives, and it has a field called ID and a field called name. So we can pre-fill in name with this constructor. Now, I'm going to do a control double click, and we'll go straight to the constructor. Now, the constructor takes one field. We have a protected object foo. When you call this, he's going to create our object. Okay. So that my field equals, this is his creation right here. So we're going to allocate the space of memory and put it in the object. We're then going to say, okay, if the memory was allocated, put our data set virtual table equals the memory location. Okay, it's going to be the object itself is now being sucked into our virtual table. And then, since you gave me a name, I'm setting object name equal to name. Now, the neat thing, excuse me, about using interfaces is you can create multiple constructors. So now, granted, you can't overload constructors like you can in other languages. Every constructor has its own procedure. Procedure names must be unique throughout the entire world of your application. So you have to prefix every single field with the table name to guarantee that uniqueness. And then you can say, we could call this constructor, create. I call it a init because for those of you who are made it through my database class, you can then look at this and go, oh, that's the init. That's where we're creating the object. Well, same thing here. We're creating it. And in this instance, we're creating it with a name and an ID. So it's completely the same, only we pre-fill those two guys right there. Now, there's our constructors. So I want to back up and say, okay, here's our table. This is the actual table. This is our virtual, the guy that's being held in memory that we've sucked into our object. Now, the first set of data you got to put in here is a public procedure or method or function, whatever you want to call these, of a getter and a setter is their typical name. Now, in Java, you normally have a lowercase s, et, and then field name. Okay, so that way you can identify I am setting this field to this. I am getting with a lowercase get name, and I'm getting it. This you get it back to me. So that's where it gets its name of setters and getters. So every field in your table here, this structure, ID and name, needs a getter and a setter. So when you want to receive the value and assign it somewhere else, you call this the getter, and that pulls it out of our object and sends it back to you as a string, okay? And that's what that is, a procedure.s. We're sending the string back to you. To set this variable, you have to call the foo set name. And then you don't have to worry about this first field, this.foo. Really all you're going to do is supply it the name. Same with down here on the ID. So you're going to set this. He understands that this foo is referring to this table, okay? So we have to include it, but you can ignore it from your paying attention. The asterisk this dot foo works exactly the same as it does in PureBasic with this command, okay? The call piece there. What do they call those methods? Element or whatever. So yeah, so we have our getters and setters. You're going to have two of each, one a piece, a get and a set for every single field that you want to be able to have somebody set or get. If you leave off a getter, all you can do is set the field. If you leave off the setter, then all somebody can do, that's a read-only field. You can't change it. It's read-only, and that's the end of the matter, okay? Now, we've already looked at our constructors, and I suppose if you wanted, you could put your constructors ahead of the getters and setters, which is probably more traditional. And then we come into functions, procedures, and I'm going to go ahead and throw in methods. Okay, so methods. These are various names of all the same thing in different languages. So if you're coming from another language, I've got your reference here, okay? So here, just like we did in the module, remember we had the init, well, that's our create, that's our constructor. And then we have dispose or destroy, if you want to call it destroy. So these are the methods of doing something with this data. Okay, so assuming that this is a database table, you're going to want to be able to find. Okay, you're going to want to be able to save, delete, validate, and delete, validate, just like you're going to have those methods will largely be the exact same, except he's going to pull his values from our virtual data set virtual table here. Okay, so I know this is kind of confusing. What you need to know is the data set virtual table is your variable name. Okay, that's all stored right here. So that is this. This is my field variable is the this. Okay. So now to come up here, we now have an interface and we have a data section. Okay. So this is basically the data that is the data set. Okay. So this is how things are being referenced in between the interface and the actual object up here. So we're going to create an interface of iFoo. That is our pinnacle definition, because we come down here and we set up my field as type iFoo. Okay, so that is the interface. This is the big guy. And in here, we have all our getters and setters. And I want to point this out because it's important. Okay, so foo set name takes a variable, right? That makes sense. And foo get name returns the .s belongs here. That's where he is setting the string return value. And the foo get ID has a .i here. That's where he is setting his return value for that procedure up there, that method function that returns the value. Okay, then we have our constructor definitions. So here's our two constructors that we have. And then we have all our rest of our methods, functions or procedures defined down here. Okay, if we could actually come up with a find by name, and this would then be a string name field. So, I mean, there you go. And then down here, this is the data section for the mapping of all of this. And this is kind of bizarre to me. These stay .i, okay, because he's referencing these inside our virtual data table, okay? This is how he's getting into and out of and connecting everything together. So interestingly, that all stays .i. All right, now here is our variable definition. And I guess I probably should have said define here. But this is a structure. It's an interface. Will that still fly, do you think? And yes, it does. Okay, so that's probably how it should be done. So we're defining my field of type iFoo, the interface, and he is automatically equal to calling a constructor and doing this. In the .NET world, you would say, here's my variable, create new, and you would do it all that way with it being, instantiated new. Okay, so then I've done some stuff here, and I want to show you what it's going to do. So this is calling the two setters. Okay. And, oh, well, let's move these up a bit. since that dispose should be killing everything. So this um, this is the foo set. We're going to set the ID to 23. We're going to set the name to George. Now I'm going to jump to those by holding down the control key and double clicking. Okay, maybe I can double click a little better. Okay, try that one. Okay, so my double clicking's not working right now. I'm sure it's my finger. So we'll come up here and look at it this way. So foo set is going to set the value, and then he's going to come back and say the name is set for us. Okay, this one's going to do it in, wait a minute, that's the get. The foo set ID is going to do the same thing. We set the ID, and then we put in there that, hey, your ID has been set. The getters are going to return for name, he's going to say name get has been called, and here's the value coming back. I'm procedure returning this value. Down here, same thing. We're going to do get this guy. We're going to return an integer, not a .s, of this .id, and we're going to say ID get. Okay, so we got field and set, field name, set, or get to tell you that those have been called. When you go through the destroy, he destroys this. Okay, interesting that we don't say this DSVT. I did look it up. When they destroy based on just the this. So that just hits me as odd. So where's your destroy? Oh, you didn't put one in there, did you? Okay, there you are. So you have a destroy here. And if we come down to where these are, and yeah, see that it's free memory this. That's right, duh. It is this because we're using this.foo as a passed in parameter. This is the guy that you're attaching this command to. So that's the same thing as doing the other. All right, never mind. Silly me. I should have seen that. So that pretty much is what we're doing. I'm going to come in and say, set the ID to 23, set the name to George, foo get the name, foo get the ID, and then we're going to say my field dispose. Okay, so basically, an interface is another way. Okay, so we got the ID set, we got the name set, we got the name get called, which was George, the ID get called, and what did I do? I called dispose returned found. Oh, that's weird. I thought I had that as, oh, you're just not letting me jump there. Okay, let's come up here and look. So to find is here. Where is to destroy is destroyed. Okay, so that's telling me I got something cross-wired. All right, let's come down here. We have dispose, that's right. And you have dispose. So I didn't call. That's really weird. My field. And we're calling dispose, and that should do it. We're not calling. Okay. This is worth keeping in the video. Do you know what that turned out to be? Okay. Do you see this exact order? I had accidentally left off this new constructor that I built, which in turn moved this up to this level. So after int1, instead of calling here, he went here, we were trying to call this function, and instead he called init2, because after init is init2. That is really weird. That's a big safety tip, folks. If you got these in a certain order, boy, you better have them in a certain order. That's an ouch. Okay, so this is in now, and now I'm going to run this again. And so now we have our destroyed, just like we were expecting to see. So that is interfaces in a nutshell. And if you find this far more understandable than using modules, then brother, go for this. Myself, I think I'm probably staying with modules. This does give me a few things I do enjoy. I love having multiple constructors. But the cost of doing this, that would be a huge change to my world. So this is the same but different than modules, so I can't justify the cost of a change in how I code. So this concludes this video. I want to thank you all for watching.